The broadcast is now starting.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Michelle, and I'm the Marketing Manager for Staff Development for Educators, and I'd like to thank you for joining us today for Model, Motivate, Write, Repeat with Adam Peterson. Before we start, there are a few things you should know. To allow for Adam to be heard clearly, attendee microphones are muted. We invite you to use the questions text box on your screen throughout the webinar to submit questions for our Q&A at the period at the end. Any audio or video problems you might experience during the presentation can usually be solved by closing any other programs or applications you may have open on your computer. Also, this session is being recorded. You should receive a link to the archive within 48 hours after the webinar. And finally, at the end of today's presentation, you will see a short survey. By completing this survey, you assist us in providing future complimentary webinars. For those of you who might not know us, Staff Development for Educators provides professional development for pre-K-12 educators through on-site PD, PD events, web-based PD, and resources. We empower educators with research-based, innovative, and rigorous PD that's practical, motivating, and fun. We are pleased to have Adam Peterson joining us today. Adam is a kindergarten teacher of more than 12 years and a self-published children's author specializing in technology integration and writing. He is the creator of Teachers Learn To YouTube channel and hosts his own vlog, giving teachers a fun, exciting glimpse into his kindergarten classroom. Let's get started. At this point, I'll turn the presentation over to Adam.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. I'm so excited to be here with you all, and I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule because I know exactly how busy you are. As Michelle said there, I taught kindergarten for the last 13 years. And now I'm working as a consultant with SDE, and I get to do these kinds of things with all of you in schools, at conferences, and on webinars here. So I'm so excited today to talk with you about one of my favorite topics, and that's writing. And before we get into it, I want to tell you why I talk about this quite a bit. It was because I was one of those teachers who found it that I was having to make time for writing. And I really wasn't getting it in every day, and I was struggling to find a way to make it work until I really broke it down to these 4 steps of modeling, motivating, writing with my kids, and just doing that on a constant basis. So I'm going to show you how I start with the very basics to getting to the very, very, I guess, advanced part of writing with kindergartners, but this can work across grade levels, and we'll go through the steps of how I do that. So one of the ways that I start my classroom is I always teach kids is by modeling writing with good writing. I expose my kids to books from day one, and I let them read and read and read and read and read. And whether or not they're a comfortable or fluent reader yet, they're just seeing what writing looks like. And as we do that, we're talking about different things. So the pictures you see here are just a couple of my reading groups going on where children are just exploring books together. But as we do these things, I talk about all the aspects of writing that they may be seeing, even if we're not writing about it yet. And as you do that, you start to hear things like this around the classroom. The students start to say, like, good writing looks like this, or look how the author does that. And this bottom picture in the right here is one of my favorite pictures because you can see there that's 4 busy little boys who could be out doing other things at activity time, but they're centered around this one book. And you'll notice, yes, it may be a Pokemon book, but they're super excited about that one book, and they're really involved in the reading or the writing of that book. Now, I mentioned that they may not be reading that fluently, of course not when it's a Pokemon book in kindergarten because there's some huge words in there, but they're getting the ideas of what writing looks like, and they're really getting involved in that. And those 2 girls in the top corner, that's one of my favorite pictures ever, how they're sharing the book and really looking at the words there. And you will, if you use those modeling techniques of what writing should look like as you're teaching about it, they're going to start to look for those in books on their own, which in turn gives them that independent knowledge to do that on their own at home as well. So just a great way to model there. Another way that I model good writing is I've written my own books. And this is not something you have to do. I self-publish these books, and we'll talk about at the end how I did that. But even if you type a book on your computer and print it out and staple it together, or bind it together, or tie it together with ribbon, and you show the kids that you have written your own story, it doesn't have to be anything fancy. My first book there on the left, My Teacher Has Feelings Too, you can tell that is like the worst drawing in the world. But when I brought that to school one day and showed my students that I had written a real, quote unquote, real book, they were so excited to start writing, and they started writing books at home like crazy. Whether or not they could write full stories, they were bringing in books that they had written at home and little things they had jotted down just to share with the class. So modeling that as a writer myself, really got them excited. And again, I really want to stress the fact that you don't have to publish a book to do this. Children love to model you. And if you come in with a book that you've just jotted down on paper at home with some silly little drawings that you've done yourself, whether or not you're the world's best artist, the kids will want to do it themselves. So just model that good writing with your own good writing. And then as you do that, I start to show the kids that we've read all these books and we've really focused on what writing looks like in a book, boys and girls, but now you're going to become the writer. Like, you get to write now. And I always start my year with the basics, whether it be tracing and writing on pencil and paper, or tracing and writing within apps, and I'll show you a little bit that I do with that, or just the very, very basic stuff of around the room. So I teach the kids that as readers, now we're going to become writers. You've learned how to read some really good books, boys and girls, but now I really want you to write your own. So when I do this, one of the biggest questions right now, and I know this is a very, very hot topic on social media, is the fact that the iPad or tablets or things like that are ruining a child's grip or stalling the child's handwriting process. And I see that as a very hot topic. Well, for the past 3 years, I think, I've used Styluses in my classroom. And this was a price that I saw this morning. I found these on Amazon for like 10 of them for $6. I think you can get bigger deals for cheaper, but they're just simple Styluses that I kept near my iPads or my tablets in my classroom. And what I did was, my students knew that if they were going to be doing any type of writing activity on the iPad or on the tablet, whatever it may be, they had to grab a stylus. And the reason for that was they were always working on that tripod grip. So if they were just playing a regular game or a regular app within the tablet or the iPad itself, I didn't care, but they really did start to go for those styluses even in that situation. But they had to. If they were doing a writing type activity where I expected that tripod grip, then they had to go grab a stylus. And it really did, it helped with that quite a bit. So that's a way to get around that whole topic that's going around right now, is use a stylus like a pen or a pencil. One of my favorite apps to use to teach beginning writing is this app called Letter School. I absolutely love this app because it teaches the kids not only how to form the letters, but it does not let them do it the wrong way. And this was one of my favorite things to throw out at the beginning of the year. After I had taught letter formation, I'd let them use this as a tool. And that's one thing I really want you to remember that I did in my classroom, and I hope you do in yours, is that I use technology as a tool. I was still the teacher. The technology was a tool. I never let the tech become the teacher in my classroom. And I hope that you follow that same philosophy with that. But the cool thing about Letter School was it not only just taught letters, but there was numbers, there was, the regular fonts, there was Danielian font, there was uppercase, lowercase, there was numbers, but then it also taught beginning sounds. So you can see in that first picture there, if this was the Letter School app and I was playing this and I tapped into the letter N here and I was practicing that, it would say a little jingle like, this is the letter N for net. So it gives the child that, letter keyword sound that they need. And then it goes through, and you can see in the first picture on the right at the top, where it's the lawnmower going over the grass and the flowers, the child is only touching the dots of where the lawnmower should go. But it does not let the child touch them in the wrong order. So if the child tried to touch the dot they're touching right now first, that top upper right dot, it would shake the screen and say, and wouldn't let them do it. They have to touch the dots in the correct formation of the letter, so that when they go to the next screen, which is the green screen at the bottom there, they're actually tracing over those lines in the right order. But if they get off the lines, it makes them start over. And then the last screen, for them to pass this letter or earn their star in the app, they have to trace the letter without lines at all. And it really forces them to understand the formation of the letter going in the right order. So I love that app for the reason that it does not let them do it the wrong way. But again, in my classroom, you'd see that being done with a stylus. Another one of my favorite apps to use, and this can work not just for beginning writing of letters, numbers, but I love to use this for story response as well. And this is a free app called Doodle Buddy. Doodle Buddy is basically just an art app. That's all it really is. But we used it for a lot of different things. So if we were practicing letters at the beginning of the year, instead of wasting paper and pencil, now we would use marker boards and whiteboards and things like that. But if I had the opportunity to do this in a small group with a few iPads around my table, we would get out Doodle Buddy because it made it repetition without wasting paper. In the fact that we could just write and write and write and write and write, and we would never have to erase or start over and throw paper away. So it's a great app for that. But that last one that I put on there, the story response, is one of my favorite ways because I could do immediate response to stories, and the kids wanted to draw even more in here because they could add stickers and pictures and backgrounds, and they could do things they couldn't do on a pencil and paper maybe really quickly, and they absolutely love to use that for that. So we would do a lot of writing response with Doodle Buddy. So I've used those things to model some writing, and then I use the modeling in my own schedule as well. So throughout my day, a lot of people ask me, well, what does your schedule look like? How do you fit writing in? So on the right side of the screen here, you see my daily schedule. And where you see red highlighted, that's where we're really working on writing, maybe teaching a writing skill or working on something specific, and we'll get to more of that pretty soon. Where you see the blue, that's where I'm actually teaching the mini lessons. So whatever our writing theme may be for the day, we're actually teaching certain things about writing. So like in my morning meeting time, we were teaching capitals, uppercases, spaces in our morning message, for instance. And then the yellow there that's highlighted, that's what we're kind of doing both. That was our specific writing time, a 15-minute, 20-minute window where I taught the main lesson for the day, and then those blue and red times where we worked on all those skills we had gotten so far. So we'll kind of go through a little bit right now. So continuing on the modeling side, I would model writing with certain mini lessons. Now, I've adapted my mini lessons that I use in my classroom from a variety of resources. The writing curriculum that we had in our school wasn't one that our grade level felt like was very creative or allowed creativity. So we kind of pulled from various resources like I know many of you do. But I feel like a lot of the mini lessons that I've done can be done across curriculums depending, no matter what curriculum you're using. So these are just my favorite mini lessons that my kids actually love to respond to, and I absolutely love teaching. So my first mini lesson that we always do at the beginning of the year, my first lesson on writing at all, is what is writing. Now in kindergarten, this is what it looks like, but if you're a second grade teacher, your writing, what is writing poster might look a little different. And you'll notice that this is a chart that's not laminated. I redid this every year with my kids, and I think that's a very important thing to remember, and I see people share this a lot. Don't laminate your anchor charts. And I know that wastes chart paper, but let your children have ownership in that. And they're going to respond to that anchor chart so much more when they have ownership and they've helped with it. So my kids helped with this chart every single year. We didn't save it and just let them read it. We actually wrote it together. So when we talk about writing, we talk about what we can write. And it was, we can write labels, we can write names, we can write letters, numbers, stories, words, and we kind of go through that in order. And we talk about how, at the beginning of the year, boys and girls, you might be really good at writing your name, but then you're going to start writing labels, and a label could just be a letter to label something like a person. You could just put a P, whatever it may be. We really focus on that, and that's our writing lesson for the day. And then throughout that working on writing time, they're labeling things around the room, or they're labeling things on their drawing pages, whatever it may be, but that's something we create together. We lead that into then my students' favorite one, which is label the room, and they love this because they get to label me as well. So I don't go to the teacher store like I did when I first started teaching and buy those big classroom label posters and stick them all over the room, because again, the children don't have ownership in that. So when we label our room, we actually label it together, whether it be on sticky notes or on sentence strips or on name cards, whatever it may be, we label the room together. So we do a whole lesson, and sometimes this takes more than a day of writing time, where we go around, we label everything we can. And we do that to show them that, you don't always have to ask me how to spell things, boys and girls. You're going to write things, and we're going to write them together, and then you can go find them. And one of our favorite things to do around the room, this isn't so much labeling, but it kind of is our who is in our class poster. And this is a poster that stays up all year long, but we just add to it. So like this was on maybe the first day of school when they were writing their names. And one of my favorite things about this is I always put my name on it as well, because your students constantly say to you, how do you spell your name? How do you spell your name? How do you spell your name? I never had to tell my kids, because I just said, go look at the name poster. So this poster stays up, but then, maybe a month later, a little while down the road, we're going to make another poster exactly like this, and I'm going to hang it over the top of this one. And we're going to do that throughout the year so that we have a stack of posters by the end of the year, and the kids absolutely love to go back and to see their growth, and it's a great way to show growth. So I can flip through this chart of all their names, and I can say, well, look, Reese, how you were writing your name on the first day of school, but Reese, look how you wrote your name on the last day of school. And they love to see that. It's a great way to show growth and let them see it themselves. So that's a fun lesson to do. Another one I teach them is that anytime I'm writing, they are writing too. So whether it be at the beginning of the year when we're just brainstorming letters or words that start with a letter, or later in the year where we're actually writing sentences. One of the things on our school supply list is a spiral bound notebook, and we use it for various things throughout the year, but one of the things I use it for is we call it their busy book. And they know that if I'm writing in front of the room, or if a student is up building sentences in front of the room, they get their busy book out of their carpet bag and they write along with us. So I write, you write is something I teach them from the get-go. Another one, and this kind of goes along with the labeling the room, but I teach them that great writers use words around them. And during this lesson, I'll pull out my phone. and I'll ask Siri some random question. And I'll tell the boys and girls, like, look, boys and girls, Mr. Peterson doesn't need to go ask somebody else how to spell this because I have this fancy little thing called Siri. Well, in the classroom, you have these fancy things called anchor charts and posters and books and dictionaries and word walls, and you can use that stuff anytime you want. I try to get the kids to understand that, you know, great writers are going to use everything they can around them to be able to write their words down. And I think that spans across grade levels, whether you're using posters or books or dictionaries. Let your students use what's accessible to them because they're going to be able to later in life as well. Another one of my favorite ones is writing tells a story. And this is an activity that I just did last week in Tennessee at a school that I was visiting with some friends of mine from SDE and ESGI. And this is a story or an activity that's very, very, very simple to do. All you need is some chart paper or even just computer paper or even a whiteboard. And what I do is I stick the kids all on the carpet and I say, all right, boys and girls, we're going to tell a story. But when we tell a story in kindergarten or in first grade, we have to think of 4 things. Every story needs a character. Every story needs a setting. Every story needs a problem. And every story needs a solution. And then what I do is I have them turn and talk to a partner. And I say, all right, I want one of you, tell me your favorite animal. And I choose a student and they tell me their favorite animal. So in this instance, they said their favorite animal was a bunny. And that's over on the left right by me that you can't really see the picture. But then I name that bunny. And I tell them, well, characters need names, boys and girls. So we name the bunny whatever the child's name is that came up to tell me their bunny's name. And I can't quite tell exactly what that one is in that picture. And then we pick a setting. So the setting that this little girl said was under a bed. And I said, well, that setting under a bed could be anywhere. Where is that bed going to be? Well, that little girl's name happened to be Addie, so we made it Addie's room. It was under Addie's bed. Well, then we asked, what could a problem be? And the little boy right there said, the bunny hit his head on a Ninja Turtle toy under the bed. And I was like, all right, well, we got to name that Ninja Turtle. And he said, like Michelangelo. I said, no, what's your name? So we named the Ninja Turtle whatever that child's name was. So we're tying the children into the story to create that ownership within the story as well. And then we came up with a solution. The solution was that this little boy at the end helped get the bunny a Band-Aid because he was the bunny's friend. So then we go through and we talk about, well, that's a great story, boys and girls, but we need some excitement, some details. So we go through and we'll retell the story again, but we'll add so much more detail to it this time. So we talk about what color the bunny is, how the bunny was feeling, why the bunny was inside, maybe it was raining outside. What did that bedroom look like and why was the bunny under the bed? Why were there toys under the bed and what was the Ninja Turtle doing under there? And where did the friend find the Band-Aid or why was the friend there? And we just add details upon details upon details and then tell them to go write their own stories. And it was really fun to do in this school. These students didn't know me and I didn't know them. I was there visiting and this one little boy raises a hand and said, before I go home and watch YouTube tonight, I'm going to write myself a story. And I was so excited by that because it really took that motivation to a new level. So then I teach them this song. And this is a little chant that I wrote about writing stories with your students. Simple to do. It's an echo story. So I'm gonna chant it out. You can echo it in your head or however it may be, but the students would echo every line I say, and it just goes like this. I'm gonna write a story. I can't wait to read it to you. I'm gonna write nice sentences. Here are the things I'm gonna use. Capitals, spaces, punctuation makes sense. I'm gonna write a story. I can't wait to read it to you. Ignore the horrible singing there. But what we do is they repeat every line, and then on the capitals, we put our hands way up above our heads. On spaces, we put our hands way out to the side. On punctuation, we poke out in the front of us like a period. And then make sense, we put our hands out like we're saying like, huh? And it really does help them to understand that, okay, we wrote a story, but now we're gonna add words, but those words need to work in sentences, and here's how they work. And it's funny because as I walk around the room, sometimes I'll hear the kids chanting in their head as they're writing down their own stories, and it's a great one. So that's fun to teach your kids. Go ahead and do that. So then we go on to this motivation part, and I've modeled all that awesome writing with them through books and stories and lessons. But to get them motivated about writing, I use this quote in my classroom. I have a poster that I hang up, and I tell the kids that, boys and girls, if you write about what you love, you're gonna love to write. And this is a quote that I came up with a long time ago. I've used it ever since I did. And I came up with that after I really studied the writing standards. And if you look at your writing standards, the writing standards tell us what the kids have to learn and the skills they need to meet those standards, but nowhere in those standards does it tell the kids or tell us as teachers what those students have to write about. So I focus on my standards, but I let the kids write about what they want and learn it in their own way. So to do that, I use these things called writing folders. And this is an idea I either got from my friend Kim Adsit or from a friend Dr. Jean. I don't remember who I got this from. I wish I could give that credit where it's due, but I know it's from one of those ladies. And this is another thing we have on our supply list is these 2-pocket folders. And I'll send a 2-pocket folder home on the very first day of school. After they've brought their supplies in, I send it back home. And I say, decorate this folder any way you want, any way at all. Decorate the folder and bring it back. And the reason I do that is they can no longer tell me I have nothing to write about, because I'll just go to them and say, well, go write about something on your folder because I know that's something important to you. And then they start writing and writing and writing. Another way that I do that is with fun apps like Pics. And I meant to put the video in here, but I think that's just a picture. Pics is an awesome app that brings your writing to life. So if this was the video, what you would see is the little girl did her writing. She took a picture of a drawing that she did. This was a directed drawing of George Washington who did. And then they can record their drawing and make it come to life in the app, and then you can send that home to your families. But you really need to go download the app to check that out. It's a free app, Pics. It's super fun to use to make your writing come to life, but a great motivator to want them to write as well. And then I just let them write. Just let them go around the room, and we add in Write the Rooms with our Read the Room. We add an artwork that they get to label, like the little girl on the right there, and just let them write any opportunity they get labeling or writing around the room. And then we love to make books, and this is one of my favorite things to do. So this is super simple to do. You'll see the book that the little girl made there about a number book. For this activity, all you need is whatever number of pages you want the book to be. So I think this was a number book that we were doing 1 through 10. So I would have 11 pages stapled together, 1 for the cover and then 10 pages for the book, right? And the way I do this is I staple those 2 corners that you can see right there with the yellow circle. And then I flip the book around and I staple those 2 corners. So it's a stack of 11 pages stapled in all 4 corners now. But the reason I flipped it around like that is that when you cut them apart into fourths, now you have 4 books with the flat part of the staple on the front. And I know that seems really OCD, but it makes it so the bumpy part of the staple isn't on the front of your book. And I think I love that. Teachers love that. Kids love that. So that's a great way to make simple books in your classroom. I just cut apart a bunch of those. I throw them in a writing center, and my kids write like crazy. So another way that I motivate and continue writing with them and get them writing even more is I let them become the editors. And again, I wish I could give credit where credit is due. I don't remember where I found this picture. It's an old one. But I would let my kids edit in the classroom. And the thing about this is I always found a way for everybody to feel important. You all have those writers who might not be ready to check spelling. And you have that one little girl or boy in your class who are always saying, go check the spelling, go check the spelling. Well, your other child who isn't ready to do that yet might feel kind of left out. So I would give them the punctuation police hat or the punctuation police badge. And they get to check punctuation because you know that every child can look for a period, right? And it gives that child a job where they might not be able to have a job another time. So let them edit with each other. And then this is one of my favorite ways to let them edit or critique each other. We did critiques around the room. And I know that's a terrible picture. I'm so sorry about that. But I would just lay out their writing. And if it was a piece that I felt like we all did a really good job on, we'd lay it out. They'd all walk around the room and they'd critique each other's artwork and writing. And it was so much fun to do, like a little art critique in a gallery. They absolutely love doing that. So those are the ways that I model and motivate. And then I get them really writing. When I say writing, I actually publish books with my class every single year. We self-publish a book. These are the 4 books we have out. You can find those on Amazon. If you just search my name, Adam Peterson, on Amazon with those titles, you'll find the books that my class wrote. Now, that's a whole nother step, and that's a whole nother seminar. So if you have any questions about how to do that, feel free to contact me. I'll put my information at the end here. But it really is a fun thing to do to self-publish with your students. We did it as a fundraiser, which is a great thing to do because you know that parents and grandparents are going to eat these things up. So we've done them as fundraisers for different charities, and they've gone over really, really, really well. And it really isn't hard to do. So that's how I really get them excited about writing. I've shown them the books that I do. We do all that model, motivating. Now we're writing, and we just repeat that over and over again by writing our own stories. So an easy way to do that self-publishing is through this company called Student Treasures. I think it's through Scholastic. My wife does that in her classroom, not so much as a fundraiser because I think they're a little bit more pricey. I do it through an Amazon-based company called CreateSpace. That's where I publish my own books. You can go search that on your own to check it out. But again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. And this is how you can get a hold of me. So my website is adampetersoneducation.com. All my contact information is on there. But you can find me at Teachers Learn 2 on YouTube, at Teachers Learn 2 on all social media. And then there's my email at the bottom if you have any questions about this. But I really, really appreciate you taking time out of your day to come listen to me talk about writing. And I hope that you get to go motivate your writers as well. And I'm going to turn it back over to Michelle. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Adam. That was great. Just a follow up on a couple housekeeping items before we take our questions and answers. So we'll take a few minutes to give you one last chance to submit questions. But in the meantime, to thank everyone for being with us today, we'd like to offer you a 10% discount off SDE professional development events or on-site training. You can do this by using the code WEBBRIEF before November 24th, 2018. You might be interested in saving 10% and joining Adam at one of our upcoming conferences in Louisiana, New Hampshire, Alabama, Tennessee, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and many other locations. Learn more about these or other PD events at SDE.com. Plus, be sure to save the dates for SDE's 2019 National Conference in Las Vegas, July 8th through the 12th, 2019. Join thousands of other educators with hundreds of expert presenters at one of our largest PD events for educators. Now, I do think we have one question, Adam. Let's see, one question came in that was asking, is the Letter School a free app?
Yeah, you know what? That's always a tough question. There is a free version of Letter School, but it does not unlock all the possibilities that the paid version does. And I don't put the price of the paid version on the actual slides because it changes so often. You know how apps can do that. And then to go along with that same, so again, the full version is paid, but another question that always gets asked after that is, well, how many do I have to buy for my classroom? And that's one that I never answer because I don't know. I don't know the rule on how many you have to buy for your school. I know Apple has that thing called home sharing where you can share with 5 devices. So I can't answer that, but yes, it is a paid app. There is a free version. So check out the free version to see how much you like it, and then go ahead and get it because it really is awesome.
Okay, great. And actually, it was just that one question that came in.
All right, perfect.
And it looks like we're at the 4:30 mark, so that works out perfectly. So again, everyone, please remember the archive of this presentation should be available within 48 hours. Live attendees will receive a follow-up email that will include a link to the archive recording. And again, thanks to Adam for joining us today. I hope everyone enjoyed the presentation and that you all have a great rest of your day. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. All right, we off?